on the origins of narcissistic personality disorder. All of narcissism is caused by one-upmanship, or the technique or practice of gaining a feeling of superiority over another person in response to perceived victimhood. In particular, it is a response to the emotion known as shame, where a person tries to get back at people for making fun of them. This is what is happening in the first 11 seconds of the liberal revolutions, aka TJ Maloneberg's video, Stories of Liberal Friends 2. This is also the entire theme of his video, ISIS Needs Love. For example, at 0 minutes 25 seconds to 0 minutes 42 seconds, he says, "And why has ISIS been causing problems and doing all of these things? Because people haven't been loving them. You see, this is the logic. When you love people, violence decreases and ends. But when you're a big meanie pants who goes around terrorizing poor little ISIS members, they're going to be mean back. It's what happens. You oppress them and hurt them, so now they're going to be mean. Let me show you some people who have been mean to them, and that's why ISIS hurt them, because they're not loving them." So what happens is that in response to people shaming them, a person becomes a narcissist by constructing a false self, also known as the grandiose self or perfect self, in order to counter the shame. Basically, in response to people effectively calling them a loser by making fun of them, they construct an alter ego that is a winner to get back at them. The false self is everything the narcissist would like to be, but alas cannot. Omnipotent, omniscient, invulnerable, impregnable, brilliant, perfect, in short, godlike. But in constructing the false self, the narcissist also constructs what is known as the true self. That is the part of the narcissist that harbors any characteristic present in them that is a source of shame. So, the false self is a mask to hide behind in order to escape from the shame present in the true self. The false self is the winner, and the true self is the loser. In fact, when the narcissist feels that people are seeing through that mask, they experience a traumatizing event known as a narcissistic injury. If we move on to the first 10 seconds of the video, TJ commits suicide, we see the liberal revolution is in for a nasty surprise after expecting to be showered with narcissistic supply. Instead of praise, he receives criticism and is shamed back to his true self form. This occurs from 0 minutes 10 seconds till 2 minutes 17 seconds. The liberal revolution is ready to commit suicide from this narcissistic injury, but then, from 4 minutes 50 seconds till end, he is brought back into his false self form, that veil of moral and intellectual superiority. They talk about the Pope like he's gone rogue. He's off the reservation, inventing his own brand of socialist Christianity. Steal from the rich and give it to the poor. That's their prerogative. If a bank would invite the poor, says Bill Maher, as he mocks conservatives / right-wingers by pronouncing the word poor the way that he does. Like, he's implying that conservatives / right-wingers condescend on the poor and downtrodden. Ah, you're so funny, Bill. Yeah, conservatives are idiots, chimes in the liberal revolution as he dons the veil of moral and intellectual superiority that saves him from taking his own life. Now, I will discuss some interesting properties that arise from the true self / false self construction. The first thing that you should know is that the false self exists at different levels of magnitude. Like, the false self gets progressively more godlike as one-upmanship becomes increasingly more important to the narcissist. Also, the shame that the narcissist feels from their true self is proportional to the magnitude of how godlike their false self is. Here is a link to the Kernberg narcissism continuum. We see that entitlement / exploitativeness increases as you move along the continuum. This corresponds with an increasingly godlike false self. Psychopath is the final level. The next thing you should know about is projection. Projection occurs in the video White Male Conspiracy, aka the Jew cries out in pain as he strikes you. Per this link, we get the definition: a primitive form of paranoia. Projection reduces anxiety by allowing the expression of the undesirable impulses or desires without becoming consciously aware of them. Attributing one's own unacknowledged, unacceptable, or unwanted thoughts and emotions to another includes severe prejudice and jealousy, hypervigilance to external danger, and injustice collecting, all with the aim of shifting one's unacceptable thoughts, feelings, and impulses onto someone else, such that those same thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and motivations are perceived as being possessed by the other. As you recall, the true self is that which harbors shame. It is the loser. Thus, the narcissist will project negative qualities onto others in order to escape from being a loser. In doing so, they also enhance their false self/winner perception, since they are cleansed of that negative quality. You will also, of course, notice that projecting the bad quality onto others makes those people more loserish, so that the narcissist becomes more of a winner in comparison. Besides projection, the narcissist also does sort of the inverse operation, absorbing good qualities from others and incorporating them into their persona. As they say on, the narcissist's false image contains the virtuous qualities in other people's characters, and their images have had those virtuous qualities replaced with the flaws in the narcissist's character. In other words, the narcissist steals your virtues and dumps on you her faults. The point of this is to make their false self more godlike. You will also, of course, notice that stealing the good qualities from others makes those people more loserish, so that the narcissist becomes more of a winner in comparison. Narcissists will also fantasize about having good qualities that they don't have. So basically, they invent an imaginary person to steal good qualities from. Here, we see that NPD gets the acronym a fame game, and that F stands for fantasizes about unlimited success, brilliance, etc. Here's an example of fantasization in the video Stories of My Liberal Friends 5. So, when I was on campus at the university that I'm a professor for, alright, my therapist says that I need to stop embellishing and lying. At the university I am a faculty member of, at the university where I'm a student for the Gender Studies department, at the college campus, the community college campus that I hang out at sometimes and go to the free buffets. Now that you know about projection and stealing/absorption, you should know about the so-called self-other that arises from them. Take a look at these two slides. On the first slide, you see that narcissists have a thicker black line around the boundary between self and world and others than do those with typical development. Then, in the second slide, for narcissists, you see arrows pointing out from the self circle and arrows pointing in from the world and others annulus. So what's happening is that self and world and others are coalesced into one, the so-called self-other. The outward pointing arrows, of course, correspond to projection, and the inward arrows correspond to stealing/absorption. Furthermore, the self-other is divided into the good self-other and the bad self-other. The good self-other contains a combination of the good traits stolen/fantasized from others and what few, if any, good traits the narcissist actually possesses. On the other hand, the bad self-other contains a combination of the bad traits that have been projected onto others by the narcissist and the few, if any, bad traits that the narcissist possesses but is not projected. Nowadays, Donald Trump is a popular target for the bad self-other. This boundary-destroying coalescence explains what is happening in the introduction to the video Men's Rights Activist John the Other Destroyed by Liberal Revolution, which runs from 0 minutes 50 seconds, which, just let me take a break. Alright, I'm back. This boundary-destroying coalescence explains what is happening in the introduction to the video, men's rights activist John the Other destroyed by liberal revolution, which runs from 0 minutes and 0 seconds to 0 minutes 50 seconds, and then from 0 minutes 50 seconds to 1 minute and 29 seconds. Well, I think it is best to see us as people. Not even people, beings, because the being part is more important than the human part, in my opinion. And I think that it's just most important to see us all as a cluster of microorganisms. So really, there is no individuality in us, there is no gender. We're just masses and blobs of collectivism, moving together to form even bigger forms of collectivism. The individual doesn't matter. Besides, one of the worst things that causes the most oppression in this world is individual thoughts and ideas. Has anything good ever come from individual thought? Who do you think electricity and great inventions come from? Collectivism. The word Marxism and communism means Marxism in itself wasn't invented by one person or people, individuals. It's just collectivism will get us somewhere. Rather than seeing ourselves as man or woman, all of these terms, I think we should just see ourselves as beings, or multiple beings. I will now explain why T.J. Malonberg calls himself liberal revolution. As you recall, narcissists are operating under their perfect/brilliant/omnipotent/omniscient false self. Thus, they think they know what is best for everyone else. As they say on, he can't be wrong. He views himself as superior to everyone and thus always right. Because of this, they want to control everyone else by using the government to force them to do what they think is correct. In other words, they are extremely illiberal. But then they project their illiberality onto other people, making the narcissist liberal in comparison. Now, I mentioned previously how narcissism exists at different magnitudes, like we see in the Kernberg narcissism continuum, with entitlement/exploitativeness increasing as you move along the continuum. As we know, the narcissist projects, so they will project their narcissism and entitlement/exploitativeness onto others. But in doing so, they are provided with the perfect excuse to further take advantage of others, since they think that other people are the bad ones and not themselves. This leads to even greater attempts to one-up/establish their superiority over them. Thus, they move farther down along the narcissism continuum. It's a positive feedback loop, as it were. This, I believe, is why Goebbels said, "The Jew is immunized against all dangers. One may call him a scoundrel, parasite, swindler, profiteer. It all runs off him like water off a raincoat. But call him a Jew, and you will be astonished at how he recoils, how injured he is, how he suddenly shrinks back. I've been found out." The narcissist thinks it is acceptable to take advantage of others because they have projected their narcissism and entitlement/exploitativeness onto them, and also because of how godlike their false self is. On the other hand, they get a narcissistic injury when people see through their false self mirage and gaze upon their true self. Here are a few examples of the liberal revolution openly reveling in its false self and its entitlement/exploitativeness. White conspiracy from 9 minutes and 6 seconds through end. Edward Bernays, father of public relations/crowd psychology/the media/propaganda, said things like, "If we understand the mechanism and motives of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without them knowing it," in his book Propaganda. Why I Love Being Black from 1 minute 13 seconds to end. And finally, Germany Never Existed from 3 minutes 12 seconds to end.